Texas A&M has been a hot topic the past couple of weeks because many people out there believe, and a lot of coaches believe, they paid for the recruiting class. Now, whether they paid for these players or they didn't pay for them, it doesn't matter. All that matters is they're there and they're going to play football. And especially with the whole NIL going on, even if in a couple of weeks or months it's leaked out they did pay for these players, it doesn't matter because you can do it nowadays. Before the most recent signing day, this recruiting class was looking legendary and one of the best of all time. But after signing day, it got even better. This recruiting class that Texas A&M just landed, this isn't my opinion or anybody's opinion, it's a cold hard fact, they are the best recruiting class of all time. We're not talking about a top 10 of all time, a top 5 of all time, this is number 1, it tops them all. I think that's a pretty impressive achievement considering number 1, they're in the SEC so they gotta compete with those people, number 2, they're not even one of the best teams so the fact they got all these guys and they're not at top yet, it tells you a lot. And number 3, they also got to recruit in the middle of Texas and Oklahoma. Look, I get it. Texas, they're not what they used to be, but I still think it's insanely impressive to steal some of those recruits away. In their most recent season, A&M finished with an 8-4 overall record. So when you hear that, you're like, that's not too good. If you keep up with college football, you should know that there's this joke going around that A&M, they go 8-4 every single year. But I'm going to tell you right now, this most recent quote-unquote 8-4 season, it was different from the rest. In the previous 4, 5, 6 years, whenever A&M goes 8-4, 9-3, those 3 to 4 games, they really didn't have a chance to win. In 2021, they did lose 4 games, but it wasn't in the same way. Yeah, you lost to Arkansas, Mississippi State, LSU, and Ole Miss, but you were in those games and they were somewhat competitive, and I think we can all agree they could win those games. Most importantly, you know I'm going to bring it up, they also upset the number 1 team in the country, Alabama. I don't really think the Alabama upset paints the picture the way some people think. Any team can go out there and maybe upset the number 1 team in the country, and then when you look at their record, they're a 6-6 overall team, that in their losses, they didn't look that good. I watched all of A&M's games this year outside of the cupcake ones, and what I saw on this team is much different than the recent ones. The difference with A&M now and going forward is that they have the talent to compete with the rest of the SEC. They did struggle last year and they didn't look that good all the time, but you could easily tell they're 1 to 2, maybe 3 guys away from being a really good football team. You saw it firsthand. When everything's clicking, they have the talent and the skill set to beat the best of the best. I don't like to make excuses because it's part of the game, but it is worth mentioning their starting quarterback got hurt and didn't get to play the rest of the year. So technically their starter, Zach Calzada, he was the backup. I know what some of you are sitting there thinking. Yo Matt, why are you talking about this? Why are you bringing up last year? I brought it up for one key reason. You could tell last year this team, the A&M team and roster, was on the brink of being great. I really, and I mean really want you to think about this. Last year's team, they were good, not great. In this most recent offseason, they added some monsters to their roster and team, and now what's happened in the past 2 to 3 weeks has made this team even scarier. Real quick, before we get into this video, if you've been watching the videos or you're new to the channel and simply not subscribed, I would greatly appreciate if you join our family, hit that subscribe button, leave a like, do all that nice stuff, and now without further ado, let's get into it. I covered some of the basic stuff, and I'm not going to sit up here and talk about all of A&M's new recruits because we don't got time for all that, and that's boring in my opinion. To make a long story short, Texas A&M has got a good player at almost every single position. Here's what I do want to talk about. Where did they struggle last year? I would say the quarterback position and the defense at times. Let me make this clear, I'm not saying the defense was terrible, but they were questionable at times. Overall, though, there was no question about it, the biggest question mark was the quarterback play and position. It's time to be honest about Zach Calzada. Is he a good kid? Yes. Is he a great football player? No. He's mediocre and he can be good at times. Unfortunately for Zach Calzada, that's not what A&M's wanting to do. They're trying to compete with the Alabamas and Georgias. And if you're one of those people saying, well, Matt, what are you talking about? Calzada, he upset Alabama. Everybody with any IQ knows he'll never play that good again. And if you don't believe me, I guess you didn't watch the rest of the season because he struggled after that game. It's clear as day and evident they don't even want Calzada, and that's why he left in the first place. Let me put it this way and we'll move on. He was the backup heading into the season for a reason. I have no idea whatsoever who's going to be the starter next year. They do have Haynes King coming back. Maybe he's the favorite, but they also got a new 5-star recruit that goes by the name of Connor Wingman. You can correct me on this down below. I'm not going to look it up. I also believe Haynes King was either a 4 or 5-star as well. The chances of a 5-star recruit flopping at the next level, it's pretty low. And the chances of 2 of them flopping and not living up to the hype, it's insanely low. I couldn't see a case of Connor and Haynes King both failing to live up to the expectations, so I think we can check off quarterback play for next year. I'm not going to lie, when I saw Haynes King play last year, he only played in a game and a half. I wasn't too impressed. It is key to note he was only a freshman and he only played in 1 game. But still, nowadays, freshmen are expected to come in and produce right away. I did watch some film on Connor, but it's so hard to try to compare high school to the college level. You never know if a good high school quarterback is going to transfer over to the next level and do the same stuff. You got to think about it. The difference from high school football and SEC competition is out of this world. He's a 5-star recruit. I expect him to tear up high school defenses. That's what I'm saying. I did like what I saw out of him, and I would say he has a good shot of starting. The quarterback room at A&M is arguably one of the best they've ever had. That may not seem like a big deal to you, but to me it is, and it makes him 10 times scarier. Why does that make him scary? Well, reason number 1, I don't care who you are. If you have a great quarterback, you have a chance to win every single game. Number 2, the most important part, is A&M for the past couple of years. They've had the talent, they just haven't had the quarterback play they need. No disrespect to Kellen Mond, he was a good college football player, but he wasn't nothing crazy. He was good against the mediocre competition and the bad competition, but every time he played Alabama, he folded like an omelet. Yeah, he was athletic, but he didn't have the arm talent to beat any good team. What's been holding A&M back, and it's held back a lot of college football teams, is great quarterback play. Next year is going to be very interesting though, because you have all the talent in the world to surround your quarterback, and now you got 2 guys who were 4 and 5-star recruits. A&M no longer has the argument to say, oh, well, we don't have a good quarterback. You got 2 to 3 good ones. That right there makes them scary alone. We also got to bring up, going into the last signing day, they already had the #1 recruiting class in the country, and they got another 5-star. Before the last signing day, they had 6. After the last one, they had 7. I think some of you do, but there's also a fair share of people that don't understand how, what's the word to describe it, insane it is. Texas A&M got 7 5-star recruits. There's only about 28 to 30 of those. And A&M got 7, let me repeat it, 7 of them. Like I was telling you, they're going to have plenty of talent to surround their quarterbacks with. They got a 5-star wide receiver that goes by the name of Evan Stewart. I know. Some of you are sitting there saying, no big deal. 1 5-star wide receiver, that's nothing. Well, I hate to inform you, they got 2 of them. The other 5-star wide receiver they got is Chris Marshall, and he's 6'3" and 195 pounds. They also got some guys coming back. Right now in this recruiting class alone, they got a 5-star quarterback and 2 5-star wide receivers. I'm not too concerned about the offensive side of the ball because last year they showed they can put up points. What I'm about to get into is why I truly and firmly believe is the reason they're the scariest team in the SEC. Alabama's always going to be one of the scariest teams in the country, but I feel like a lot of teams aren't scared of them because they expect to be scared, if that makes sense. Whenever you play Alabama, you know you're playing some of the best athletes, so you expect that. You're not really shocked by it when you see it. For A&M next year, that's why I think it's going to be a different story. You're not really expecting A&M to be a scary team and have all these 5-star recruits. Let's take a look at this. A&M got a 5-star defensive lineman, Walter Nolan, who is 6'4" and 325 pounds. But hold on, they also got another 5-star defensive lineman, Gabriel Brownlow, who's 6'3" and 280 pounds. So that's 2 5-star defensive linemen, and if 2 wasn't enough for you, they got a third 5-star defensive lineman, Shamar Stewart, who's 6'6" and 270 pounds. You heard me correctly. Texas A&M has 3 5-star defensive linemen. I don't care if you don't like Texas A&M, you hate their guts. I think we can all agree that is a terrifying lineup. It's not like these are 6'1" or 6 foot defensive linemen. All of these guys are around 6'4". They are tanks, they are monsters, they are whatever you want to label them. I guess it's also key to mention we got to talk about their other 5-star recruit, Denver Harris, who's a 6'1", 180-pound cornerback. Next year, Texas A&M's defense, almost half of them might be 5-star recruits. And you want to know the worst part about all of this? A&M also got 19 4-star recruits that we don't even have time to talk about. I'm sure you've heard many people say it, but I gotta emphasize it. This is an unreal class. Whenever you get all these guys, out of 7 of these 5-star recruits, let's just say 3 or 4 of them are good, and the 4-star recruits, about 10 of them are good. That is still one of the best teams in the SEC. Well, not one of the best teams, but when you look at the talent, they're one of the best teams. And then you have to take into account you're going to be pairing these guys with the most recent team that wasn't terrible, and they're going to be good if they have the right pieces. I don't even think I have to say it. Texas A&M, they're flat out loaded. Taking a look at their schedule next year, all the way up until the Alabama game, I don't see a tough game on their schedule. Miami's not that good, and they have a long way to go with their program. That's a different conversation for a different day. Arkansas, they were good last year, but I got to see more out of them to feel like they're a legit contender. And then you got Mississippi State, they're up and down, and Alabama's just the one you circle and you're like, okay, that's going to be a tough one. After the Alabama game, South Carolina, yeah, they got Spencer Rattler. I don't think it's a tough one though. Ole Miss is going to be tough, but then look, you got Florida, down year, Auburn, down year, UMass, terrible, and LSU, and they're on the rebuild. When you look at their schedule, there's no reason to believe they should have more than 2 losses, and I think they're going to go maybe 11-1. Maybe they upset Alabama and lose to somebody else down the road. With all this talent, I don't care if they're freshmen, there's no excuse for A&M not to win 10 games. It's going to be an interesting season, not just for A&M, but SEC overall. Let me know your thoughts down below. But with all that being said, I'm just going to wrap up this video. Hope you guys enjoyed. Hope you guys learned something. If you're new to the channel, join the family, hit that subscribe button, leave a like, do a nice stuff. I'm out. Peace.